What a huge issue. Talk about a change in lifestyle. What was your situation before your granddaughter became your daughter?
My life situation?
Yes.
I was working. I had a marvelous career. I went out to lunch with people, as I say, that didn't spill their milk on me. I did all the things. Frank and I were enjoying, you know, 2 paychecks.
Had
The
raised
children
how many
growed,
of your own children?
3 children. And we were able to travel, and along came a baby. My son was 17 and his girlfriend was 15, and they told us their news, and we said, well, we'll stand by you, and a baby was born.
They were living in the house?
Well, she moved in during the pregnancy, and the baby was born with all kinds of complications, was hospitalized for 8 months, came home weighing 8 pounds at 8 months, which was pathetic, with a distended liver, all kinds of problems.
Why were the problems there?
She was born with cytomegalovirus, which is CMV, they use it, which is a lethal disease. It's almost on the idea of AIDS. You have no antibodies to fight anything. And they told us she would probably be deaf, blind, and retarded. And thank God she's only deaf in her right ear. And now she's she's come a long way, baby. She sure has, yeah.
And what's the situation with your daughter?
My
right?
son.
Your son.
It's my son, Paul's
He's still
child.
at home.
Right, he is, yeah. He's been in and out, but he's there now, doing well. Had a lot of bad falls, but has picked himself up, thank God, now.
And Kayla calls your son what?
Daddy.
And
He's her
calls your
daddy.
husband?
Pa. Sometimes
Calls
Daddy,
you?
Pa. Mommy.
How about your ex-daughter-in-law? Where does she figure into this now?
Well, she hasn't been in the picture for a while. She has chosen not to see Kayla for about 9 months now.
So first you get over
she
the
was her-
heartbreak, right?
She
of all
was her
this.
friend, I guess.
Yeah?
Yes, it was very heartbreaking, mostly for Kayla, I think.
And you and Frank made the decision to adopt. Tell us first why, and then what you went through to make the decision.
Well, I think because of all her birth defects, pardon me, and all the trips to Boston 3 times a week to the various doctors, I had no power of attorney to release medical records. And her mother was gone at that point, and her father would have to sign releases, and I would take them back and forth. So it was suggested to us a couple of years ago by a guardian ad litem at the time to apply for guardianship, and Frank and I did, and that gave me the power of attorney. And we are hopeful that we can resolve some sort of an open adoption where maybe she will be into Kayla's life sometime, and things will work out.
Yeah, but it has changed your life just dramatically,
Tremendously.
huh? Do you resent it?
I did in the beginning because I thought this is temporary. And, you know, here's everybody wearing mink coats and going to Bermuda and doing all these things, and I'm running back and forth to the doctors and preschool, and there was nobody home my age. All my friends were out there working.
Is that the hardest part, is relating to your peers?
Right.
Finding a peer that is your age with a 4-year-old as a daughter.
Because they're all on their 3rd set of furniture now, and they don't want us to come over, is the bottom line.
How about Kayla? How does she feel about all of this? Is she old enough to understand?
Yes, she is. We saw a thing last night on television. It was that Wednesday's Child, and she wanted to know what that meant. And I told her, and she said, like, you're going to adopt me? And I said, yes. She calls me Mommy. She doesn't want to be different. Everyone has a mommy.
Yeah. As you'll be going to PTA meetings, you'll be doing all the school things.
That's what Pamela said. Are you going to be a brownie leader again, Mom?
Yeah.
You're going to teach CCD?
Well, you know, and the problem is, having a baby again at 40, I've got to tell you, I had forgotten what it was like to have an infant. You do forget.
But you learn quickly, don't you?
You do learn quickly, but you learn all over again. Louise, your issue. This is your daughter's
It's my daughter's
son. Little Jeffrey.
Jeffrey. And Jeffrey has lived with us since he was born. We took him home from the hospital.
What were the circumstances?
The circumstances were my daughter was not married to this young man, the alleged father. And we thought that we would just be helping out for a short time until they got on their feet. And we decided that, mutual decision, that it would perhaps be best for them to come to live with us for a couple of months. Well, it just didn't work out as such. The alleged father left the household.
You don't sound like you're too thrilled with him.
No.
How about your daughter now? Why the need for adopting Jeffrey?
She just is not capable of assuming responsibility.
Are there emotional disorders there?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
And even when she was living with us, she was on the scheme of things for about maybe a year and a half of his life, but really on the fringe. The bringing up, the rearing was always left to myself, and when I wasn't around, it was left to my youngest daughter, who was 21 and was living in the house at the time.
Now, Jeffrey's mother, your daughter, is you're Jeffrey's mother.
I'm Jeffrey's mother because he's adopted.
Your daughter is about 30 years old,
She's
right?
32
We're not
years
talking
old.
about
No, we're not
17,
talking about
15.
a teenager. No.
So that there is no, as Louise hopes for a future and some integration. You're not
I'm not
giving
looking
that.
for it. No.
You're not.
There is integration to some extent because the adoption was what they call an open adoption. So she has, according to the agreement that was signed, even though an adoption is irrevocable, he's our child, she can see him and be with him a certain
And what
time.
does he call her?
By her first name.
He
does
thinks
not
she's
know.
a friend?
Just a friend.
How old is Jeffrey?
He's 4.
You
We have spoken about adoption, but not in terms of him being adopted as yet. We will tell him.
Calls you mommy?
He calls me by the Yiddish term, which is Bubby.
Yes.
But more often than not, he calls me Mommy. And I have 2 other daughters that live in the house now.
I'm watching Catherine look so compassionately at the two of you, and I know that is your job. As a guardian ad litem, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of this. What's the biggest reason why this is happening? And this is not to link drugs and alcohol to your situations, because we haven't even discussed this, but is that the reason?
That very definitely is
Is
the
it?
reason. With the growth in problems with drugs of the younger generation, it's fallen to the older generation to pick up.
What are you seeing, Catherine, before a grandparent takes a child? I know Peggy has stories of a little 2-year-old who was in 25 foster homes before finally the grandparents stepped in. Are you seeing that happening first before grandparents step in?
Not really, no. The Department of Social Services is most frequently involved in these cases, and there is a process by which, there's a court process by which the child is going to be placed outside of the home. The department has a mandate to look to the family first, and that's when grandparents often come in.
Step in. Let's-
What is going to happen when my husband and I are no longer here? I counsel people when they come to our group meetings and they say, what are we going to do? We're older. I'm 58 and I'm not the oldest. We have some people in their 70s. And I said, the first thing you have to do is get your wills in order, because even though the adoption is irrevocable, Jeffrey is our child, what's going to happen when my husband and I are no longer here? We have given a trusteeship to our oldest daughter, and she will make a wonderful mother. But you have to take into consideration the fact that hopefully she'll marry and will her
They're all just
husband. You know, there are
tons
just
of ifs.
so many things.
You say the sibling rivalry is enormous, and you're missing time with your youngest daughter, who's what,
Right.
20, in her 20s, just got
She's
engaged.
21, right. And I
Can't
would
go
like to
shopping with her.
Right, I'd like to spend more time with her.
But what about the sibling rivalry? What did the 2 boys and your daughter think before you took Kayla, or when you took Kayla?
Well, in the beginning it was very hard because they were teenagers too, my oldest son and my youngest daughter, and my only daughter. And there was, you know, they would be out late at night, like today, they'd go out at 9:30 at night, whereas when, you know, I was younger, we went out earlier. And I'd be saying, don't shower now, don't put the blow dryer on, it's 9:30, the baby's asleep. Or on a Saturday morning, they were out till 2 or 2:30, and Kayla's beating a drum at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning. It's Ma. And I say, but Kayla lives here. But we live here too, and we were here first.
So you had a hard
It
time.
was, but
with
now, thank
balancing.
God, it's all resolved and everybody loves, well, they always loved, but it was hard. And I haven't been able to roll over yet, and I'd like to roll over.
What does that
But
mean?
I don't mean it complaining. I'm tired. You know, Kayla's up at 6 o'clock every morning, and, you know, as your children get older, then thank God they start to sleep later and you can sleep.
hope so.
Well, we had just gotten to that point, and now I'm back up at 6 every
Your big
morning.
fear is money. Again, the
Well,
issue
I want to
of-
be able to provide everything. I have a daughter who wants to have a beautiful wedding, but I have a little one that's going to private school in September, and there's lots of
a
issues.
juggling act for you. Let's take a call. Good morning. You're on Good Day.
Good morning, Eileen.
Hi, how are you?
This is fine, thank you. This is Ann from Arlington.
Hi, Ann.
And I just want to say I can understand what these ladies are going through. I am 55 years old, and I have legal guardianship of my granddaughter who was 6. And my daughter was on drugs when she was a little over a year old, and she decided she couldn't take care of herself let alone take care of a baby anymore, and was going to give her up for adoption. And she had been in my home. Of course, I couldn't let her go. And you have all this ambivalence and anger. She's your family, but at 51 years old, you don't feel like starting all over again with diapers, but you do it.
You do it. You do it because they're your flesh and blood, I suppose, even though you probably go through a lot of conflict. You know, you've got things to decide between you and your husband. How did he take this, Ann?
Oh, well, he definitely was in favor of it. In fact, when she was pregnant, her situation was not good, and I thought she should make plans to give her up for adoption, and my husband was absolutely against it.
You might want to stay tuned for the number of Peggy and Louise's group, because you might need that support. I know you're doing great work as you all get together and talk about these issues. So why don't you do that, Ann? Stay on the line. Or at least stay tuned. And let's take another call. Good morning.
Hi.
Hi. Same situation?
No, very different situation. I am a victim of what these people are. I am the mother that lost my children. And I'm a very angry mother because I would like to have a relationship with my kids. I would like to see my kids.
Yeah, but wait, let's back up to your story. What happened? How did you lose your one child, two children?
3 children.
3. How did you lose them? What happened? What was going on in your life?
Legally separated. I went away for a weekend. I came home. There were no children in the house.
I mean, that's it?
That's it.
There must have been other issues.
Yes, there were. My husband went into the house, smeared feces across the kitchen counter, broke glass, and said I left the children unattended. GSS came into the home and removed the children temporarily. And then when I got involved with DSS, I got a clean record from DSS. I got affidavits from people stating I was a very fit mother, and I had no rights.
Now, who's caring for your children?
The grandparents.
His parents.
His parents.
And where is he in this picture?
Where is he?
Your
Not
husband.
there.
You're not there.
Not there.
Catherine, speak to this. What about the rights of the biological parent, and where does the court draw the line?
Oh, the rights of the biological parent have always been paramount. There's nothing more sacred than the relationship between parent
How
and child.
can a woman lose her 3 children then?
There is a very involved process. It's very time-consuming, and there's a very high standard of evidence that's required to separate mother and children.
I mean, most of us are thinking there's got to be more to this than what you're telling us. Is there?
No, Eileen, I am a recovering alcoholic and addict and have been for years.
That the courts looked at that, presumably?
They-
Or did your husband use that?
He said I was actively using, and for 1 year, for every 2 weeks, I've had drug and urine screens, and they have come out clean. Okay? Completely clean.
Your children are presumably the grandparents have adopted. Is that right?
They're in the process of adopting them. Now, I want to know the rights of a mother. Like with these 2 grandmothers, I have a lot of respect for them taking care of their children. But what's going to happen when the biological parents come back into their life
Well, that's
and
a very...
they want to assume responsibility?
Yeah, that's a good point. First of all, let's just, bottom line, should she get a lawyer if she really feels she has a case here? or-
Absolutely, and if she is financially eligible, the courts will provide one.
Yeah.
The parents' rights are protected.
Do it
they're greatly-
before or during the adoption process so you can argue it.
Oh,
But what
well
about,
before.
now, what's your situation in terms of this point? What about the biological?
Well, I feel sorry for her, but I think maybe, you know, there's a little more to it. There has to be. I think a lot of these mothers, and I don't mean her per se, feel that the grandparents took the child away when nobody can take a child away. Only the courts can take it. And in my case, I was there to pick up the ball and said, I will quit my job and I will raise her. You know, figured it was going to be temporary.
You don't
but-
want to steal this.
Right, you can't. I wouldn't want anybody
What
to
about
steal
a
my
recourse?
children.
What about the biological parents coming back and saying, hey, we want her back?
Well, I think you have to think of the child. I don't think that you can go for 5 or 6 years and go out there, Eileen, and just party and have a good time and let somebody else do all the rearing and all the bonding and then come
Walk
back and
back
say,
in.
well, I've finished partying, sweetheart. You're my biological baby, so pack up your clothes. The child doesn't want to go. In my case, I'm the child's mother. I do her mothering. She said, you're my mama. You take care of me every day.
You have a support group, and you need this. If this is your situation, you need it from the legal perspective, you need it emotionally and with support. It's called Grandparents as Parents. 617-471-0036 is the number, and I know you two work very hard with this, and you need the support.
Right.
And from every
Thank
angle,
God we
don't
have
you?
each other. Right?
Yeah.
We're not alone out there. There's 2.5 million grandparents in the United States raising grandchildren.
Whoa, and
That's
that's
a
a
lot,
lot
a
for
lot.
the problems in our society. But thank you, Peggy. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Catherine. I know
Pleasure.
you're in and you're doing great work when you're needed as a guardian ad litem, and we thank you for your staying neutral and trying to weigh both sides.